Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I am Arjun Chaudhary. Here are the top stories we're tracking for you on Tuesday, the 24th of November. India and Singapore signed 10 MOUs to boost strategic partnership. Elements in Pakistan and Afghanistan, major source of terror funds, says US report. And major parties in Nepal agree to amend constitution to address Madhesi concerns. And now for all the details. India and Singapore on Tuesday agreed to cooperate in various sectors to strengthen bilateral ties. Visiting Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi held talks with Singaporean counterpart Lee Hsien Loong on a wide range of issues.
India and Singapore inked 10 memoranda of understanding in areas including civil aviation, cyber security, cooperation in the field of planning, cooperation to combat illicit trafficking in narcotic drugs, and capacity building in the field of urban planning and governance. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Singaporean counterpart Lee Hsien Loong also signed a joint declaration on a strategic partnership to enhance cooperation in fields ranging from political, defence and security cooperation to economic, cultural and people-to-people contact. Both the sides also agreed to cooperate on maritime security. The two leaders also launched stamps of Indian Presidential House Rashtrapati Bhavan and Singapore's Istana to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between the two countries. Later in the day, Prime Minister Modi addressed the India-Singapore Economic Convention.
A significantly large number of Indian companies are registered in Singapore. Singapore companies also have a level of familiarity with Indian market due to involvement over the past 2 decades. Our companies are positioned to explore and develop promising engagements. With a significant and growing number of companies of both sides and of foreign companies in both markets, I expect even more exciting partnership.
Prime Minister Modi was on a 2-day Singapore visit on the last leg of his Southeast Asia tour after attending the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN and East Asia summits in Malaysia.
A US report has been critical of unidentified elements in Pakistan and Afghanistan, which are funding terror organizations in a big way. A report.
The report by the US Treasury Department notes that terror organizations get funds from a wide range of sources, including businesses and proceeds derived from criminal activities such as smuggling, extortion and kidnapping for ransom in Afghanistan and Pakistan. The report, Terrorist Financing Risk Assessment 2015, also states that several charitable front organizations like the Jamaat-ud-Dawa and Falah-e-Insaniyat Foundation are providing financial support to Lashkar-e-Taiba and other groups within Pakistan. It also notes that private donations during the holy month of Ramadan and profits earned through the sale of animal hides during the Eid-ul-Adha contribute millions of dollars to these groups. Earlier, a similar report by the British government had claimed that funding via donations had been diverted from Afghanistan and Pakistan to terrorist groups operating in Syria. World leaders have called for choking funds to these organizations in order to counter terrorism. Last week, terror financing was the focus of discussions between US security officials and Pakistani defense team headed by Army Chief General Raheel Sharif in Washington.
Moving on, Muslim Bengalis in Pakistan voiced their concern and anguish over the execution of 2 top leaders in Bangladesh. The opposition leaders were executed in Bangladesh on Sunday for war crimes committed during the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War.
More than 500 Muslim Bengalis took to streets in Pakistan's Karachi city to mark their protest against the execution of Jamaat-e-Islami leader Ali Ehsan Muhammad Mujahid and Bangladesh Nationalist Party leader Salahuddin Qadir Chaudhry. The duo was hanged shortly after Bangladesh President Abdul Hamid rejected their appeals late on Saturday for clemency. The protest was organized by Pakistan Muslim Alliance that claims to represent 2.5 million Bengalis living in Pakistan.
हम सरापा एहतजाज हैं कि मशरक़ी पाकिस्तान में नज़र पाकिस्तान के हामियों को जिस तरीके से चुन कर फांसी दी जा रही है और हुकूमत पाकिस्तान खामोश है.
The protesters also held funeral prayers in absentia for those executed.
कल भी सलाहुद्दीन कादिर चौधरी को फांसी दी गई है. सिर्फ इसलिए फांसी दी जा रही है वहाँ पर कि वो पाकिस्तान से मोहब्बत करते हैं. उनका और कोई गुनाह नहीं है. उन्होंने कोई जुर्म नहीं किया.
Earlier, Pakistan's Interior Minister Chaudhry Nisar Ali Khan had also expressed concern over the developments, saying whatever is going on in Bangladesh is in violation of international laws. East Pakistan broke away to become independent Bangladesh in 1971 after fighting a 9-month-long civil war. The Pakistan Army and its local collaborators like the Jamaat had unleashed large-scale violence during the period, resulting in the death of some 3 million people.
Germany has joined NATO forces in deciding to continue its military presence in Afghanistan in 2016. The decision has been taken in the wake of recent rise in Taliban insurgency in the war-torn country. Here's a report.
The German government has announced to continue the mission Resolute Support in 2016, which will train, advise and provide assistance to Afghan security forces. Last week, the German government had announced to send 130 more soldiers to the war-torn country to support Afghan forces to tackle militancy. Germany has now expanded its troop deployment in Afghanistan from 850 to 980 personnel.
Wir sind übereingekommen, und das ist eine sehr gute Nachricht, dass wir gemeinsam unseren Beitrag fortsetzen wollen, um die Sicherheitsarchitektur in Afghanistan zu stärken und weiter auszubilden. Das ist ein sehr gutes Ergebnis, denn es gibt viel zu tun. Wir wollen die Mission Resolute Support Mission im Jahr 2016.
Germany had earlier planned to withdraw most of its troops by 2016 and limit its military presence in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. But the deteriorating security situation and brief capture of the northern city of Kunduz in September prompted it to review its earlier plan. Afghanistan Defense Minister Mohammad Masoom Stanikzai welcomed Germany's decision.
Afghanistan, the Afghan National Security Forces, they are doing their job. We are taking over the responsibility, but still fighting the terrorism. It is a task that one country alone cannot do that. And I think the recent incidents and events showed that the new generation of the terrorists will require a wider international cooperation.
Currently, over 13,000 NATO troops have been deployed in Afghanistan to provide assistance to Afghan security forces. Last month, the United States had announced delay in withdrawal of its troops from the country and to keep 5,500 troops till 2017.
Moving on to news from Nepal. Major political parties of Nepal have agreed to introduce a constitution amendment bill to accommodate the demands of Madhesis. The community has been protesting against Nepal's new constitution since its adoption in September this year.
The ruling and the opposition parties in Nepal have decided to move the Constitution Amendment Bill after consulting with agitating groups. Leaders of Nepali Congress, CPN UML, UCP and Maoist, Rashtriya Prajatantra Party Nepal, Rashtriya Prajatantra Party and Madhesi Janadhikar Forum Democratic were present at the meeting. The meeting was held days after 4 anti-constitution protesters were killed in clashes with police in the volatile Terai region along the Indian border. The bill would include a provision for proportionate and inclusive representation of Madhesis in the parliament and allocation of seats on the basis of population. The parliament meeting is scheduled to be held this week. Meanwhile, situation remains tense in the region. The supporters of Samyukta Loktantrik Madhesi Morcha are continuing their demonstration in Saptaru and other districts. They torched 2 government offices and a police post and vandalized a dozen of vehicles. Around 50 people have died in protests since the adoption of the new charter. The constitution, according to the Madhesi protesters, does not accommodate their interests.
Search for survivors in Myanmar continued on Tuesday, days after a massive landslide buried encampment near a jade mine in northern Kachin province. Over 100 people have been killed in the incident and another 100 are said to be missing. Heavy equipments were brought in to assist the search amid fading hope of finding survivors. The landslide happened when a mountain of mining debris gave way in the early hours of Saturday in Pakistan, an area that produces some of the world's highest quality jade. In Sri Lanka, US top envoy to the UN, Samantha Power, met with Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to bolster ties between the two countries. She assured support to the reconciliation process with the Tamil minorities in Sri Lanka.
The United States Permanent Representative to the UN, Samantha Power, concluded her 3-day visit to Sri Lanka with a meeting with Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe on Monday. Power was in the island nation to boost bilateral partnership between the two countries. She also pledged support to the Sri Lankan government's commitment towards reconciliation after decades of civil war with Tamil Tigers. On Sunday, Power travelled to the former war-torn northern city of Jaffna and met with the local government officials and organizations and communities affected by the conflict. This comes after the US in September backed a resolution at the UN on promoting reconciliation, accountability and human rights in Sri Lanka.
The European Union has agreed to address Islamabad's concerns over deporting Pakistani citizens from Europe. This comes days after Pakistan Interior Ministry suspended the Pakistan-EU readmission agreement on migrants. A report.
The European Union has assured Islamabad that deportees would now be sent back to Pakistan under a clearly defined standard operating procedure. The development came after a meeting between the Commissioner Migration of EU, Dimitris Avramopoulos, and Pakistan Interior Minister Chaudhry Nisar Ali Khan on Monday. The meeting is likely to restore the readmission deal with the EU after it decided to appoint the immigration officer to be based in Islamabad to deal with the migration problems. Earlier this month, Islamabad had suspended an agreement on readmission of illegal migrants with the EU after Pakistani migrants were deported from European countries for their alleged links to terrorism in the wake of Paris attack. Pakistan Interior Ministry has said that no Pakistani citizen should be deported on terror charges unless evidence is provided. Last week, the Interior Minister said that airlines returning deportees without Pakistan's permission would be penalized.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. India and Singapore signed 10 MOUs to boost strategic partnership. Elements in Pakistan and Afghanistan, major source of terror funds, says US report. And major parties in Nepal agree to amend constitution to address Madhesi's concerns. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.